I should have realized that Booyakasha was going to be said sooner or later. Where's their popular catchphrase, Cowabunga? Anyway, how do you all do? This is Double RPG here to deliver my thoughts on the most current episode of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on Nickelodeon. As the name of the episode implies, Baxter Stockman makes his long-awaited debut on the show, but his character comes off as different and one that pays an homage to both the 1987 and 2003 series interpretation of the character. Go grab a slice of pizza, and let's get on with this review. Episode 5 starts off in the Turtles' sewer lair where Splinter is meditating and Mikey is causing shenanigans by trying to do a skateboard ollie over his brothers. Their sensei is angered by what he sees and notifies them that it is never good to skateboard inside their home. Leo insists that it was a mistake and that they will clean up their mess. Splinter agrees, but he also grounds them for a week because of what they've done, which leads the brothers into dismay. Raph is hit with extreme boredom because of the trouble, while Donnie shows off an invention that he obtained while scouring for nanotech at a military base that turns out to be an MP3 player. First we have smartphones, and then we have laptops, and now we have an MP3 player on the show? Man, the show is definitely caught up with the times. If they show a tablet, I'm gonna... No. Who am I kidding? They can't even show off a tablet, could they? Yeah, I hope they don't. No offense, but I'm not really that big into tablets quite yet. But anyway, Mike nicknames the device the Teapot, as the name is a reference to Apple's iPod. Mikey gets enjoyment while Raph insists that they go up to the surface and kill some time by skateboarding while Master Splinter is sleeping. The Turtles go out and have a fun time. But their fun is cut short when they spot a mad inventor in mechanical armor trying to break into a building, and they beat him down while throwing him into a dumpster, much to the man's disappointment. The Turtles make it back home, and Mikey is surprised and scared when he realizes that the Teapot is missing, as it was left back in the alleyway where they dumped the awkward inventor into the dumpster. Leaving the Teapot may have been a recipe for disaster, as the device unlocks the true potential within the man's armor. Upon arriving back home in the sewer lair, everyone but Leo insists that everything will be alright. But that only came back to bite them the next morning, as their groggy appearance and poor exercises forces their sensei to enforce discipline via randori on the Turtles for lying about being awake and not tiresome. Sometime later, Leo is watching his favorite cartoon when it is interrupted by a breaking news update that the man in the mechanical armor is causing more havoc as his equipment is more advanced than before. When they discover that the Teapot is the source of the armor's transformation, Donnie scolds Michelangelo for being clumsy and losing it, as the Turtles make an attempt to find the man named Baxter Stockman and get the MP3 player back. As they arrive at Stockman's lair where he's sitting down on this chair that he calls the Stockman Pod, they duke it out with an impressive fight, but the evolution in the armor proves to be too much for our heroes to take him down. A third phase in the armor develops, and it looks very similar to the Mousers in the previous two shows, and it causes a chase to where the Turtles manage to get away safely, after Mikey throws some pizza into Baxter's face. Splinter demands why the Turtles were out when he discovers them battered and bruised when coming home, and this forces him to discipline his sons even further by saying that the ninja must not cause harm, but to do it if the circumstances are necessary. Plus, this also teaches Leo and his brothers that in order to defeat Stockman, they mustn't defeat him on the outside, but to defeat him from the inside, meaning that the armor's true weakness is the one controlling it. The Ninja Turtles manage to lure Stockman onto the rooftops to do another fight, and it has almost led to another defeat. However, Mikey comes and throws a beehive, in which Leo jokingly runs into after a little accident from the beginning, into the armor to cause Stockman to lose his control. This proves effective as Baxter is pinned down, and Leo stabs the Teapot to revert the armor back to its original state. Before they leave, the Turtles decide to even the odds by throwing Baxter into the dumpster one more time. Man, this Baxter Stockman is as weak as the last two incarnations. What great memories. After their victory against Stockman, the Turtles arrive home with Splinter congratulating them on their impressive skills, and he pardons their punishment with a little more discipline via randori, as it only leaves the Turtles running for their lives. As with that, Episode 5 comes to a closure. Every time when I see a new episode, the show is only grasping me more and more into the story, the characters, and the whole show in general. There was so much good as there was with the previous episodes, and probably what made this episode so great was how the storyline took a sidestep with something different for Baxter Stockman's character this time around. This mostly revolves around how his armor is powered up to the max. We have seen many of the enemies get transformed into a mutant based on the mutagen that mutated the Turtles and Splinter, but Stockman's source of power comes from the Teapot that Mikey dropped. If it was something that made Baxter turn into a fly, I'm sure most followers of the comic might have been disappointed, as the formula of having enemies being transformed with the ooze would start getting stale with nothing new outside of the norm. Plus, the transformations of the mechanical armor at its full level looked like the head of a Mauser that we have seen in the previous cartoons, and I thought it was a great homage to where Baxter's origins were originally at when he created those mechanical abominations. I also gotta mention that the amount of color, visual effects, and animation of the characters have been significantly improved from a technical standpoint. I was starting to get a bit bored with the turtles reusing some of their facial expressions within the previous episodes that would make me say that the animation would need a vast improvement in the next season. However, that was set aside as we see many comical gags with the turtles, the visual effects of the comic book style attacks and strikes, as well as dark silhouettes of the ninjas only shot out bodacious awesomeness from me. For those looking for improvement in most of the stuff they nitpicked about in the previous episodes might be in for a treat this time around. Sometimes I feel that the comic relief within the fights against Baxter Stockman and Splinter's discipline may be a bit over-exaggerated, but I think it only lifts the spirit of where the turtles are truly at within the series as it prevents itself from being too dark most of the time. Plus, I love it when Leo has that accident of falling down from the rooftops at the beginning. I know he may be very bland for upholding his will towards the ninja code, but at least he needs to be poked with fun at some time, right? Another thing I thought was really awesome was the Easter egg when the news report came up that showed Channel 6 News, in which April worked for in the original animated show. That's another great representation of respect from this series, and the more it does that, makes me enjoy the show even more. Finally, we got to see Donatello utilize his Naginata for the first time, but it's a shame that it isn't used for too long as Baxter breaks his bow staff in less than 2 seconds of the Naginata blade popping out. Other than that, this episode was packed with great material. Probably the most intriguing thing about this episode is Baxter Stockman himself. We didn't see anything that relates to his previous incarnations or the Mausers that he creates, but I assume that is being saved for later episodes as Shredder will most likely recruit him to his services. It is evident as it is revealed that his Mausers were rejected from the TCRI building when Stockman was trying to get his revenge during the breaking news update. One more positive note is that Phil Lamar voices Baxter Stockman in this episode, and the guy puts on a great show once more. The Mad TV star has great talent from that show and voicing characters in both cartoons, movies, and video games, such as Metal Gear Solid 2 and 4, where he voices the character Vamp. With that said, Episode 5 is another home run for the show that delivers with great promise that the show can try out newer ideas that are outside of the norm, but to remain true to the roots of some things. So, I have to give this episode a 10 out of 10. It's definitely a keeper that shouldn't be missed. Alright, that does it for my review of Episode 5 of the 2012 TMNT show on Nickelodeon. Tune in next week with my review of Episode 6, Metalhead. This is another return of a classic enemy from TMNT lore, but this episode appears as one of Donatello's creations instead. This should be another interesting episode for us to watch. Anyway, be sure to leave me a comment to notify me of your own thoughts on Episode 5, and be sure to rate this video, subscribe to my channel for more content and reviews of the show in the future, and be sure to check out this cartoon on the PlayStation Network or on Nick.com whenever you get the chance. This is RRPG signing off, and I'll see you next week, Turtle fans. Oh, and no Booyakasha next week, please! Ugh!